to you and tell you that we know the answer for how to fix public safety in White Center. We've heard a lot of stuff already tonight that we have to take back to Olympia come January when we go back down and make laws, particularly around fireworks and around the 1-year delay that is in current state law that prevents a fireworks ban from taking effect immediately. I do think there's a couple things that we did this year that I do want to highlight, particularly around gun violence prevention. You know, a lot of what we've been talking about tonight is property crime, but of course violent crime is still very much present in this community. I live just over Roxbury. As a couple months ago, I live a block north of city limits, and so I feel very much like this is part of my community, even though I don't officially live in the unincorporated area. We passed a law, so it used to be that if you were found guilty of a violent crime, you'd lose your firearm rights, but if you were found not guilty by reason of insanity, you did not lose your firearm rights, which I know, I mean, that's one of those things. And so good news is we passed a law that says if you're found not guilty by reason of insanity for a violent crime and the judge considers your access to a firearm to be a threat, potential threat to yourself or others, then you can also lose your firearm rights. We passed a law to improve and extend our extreme risk protection orders, which is a process by which a police officer or a mental health counselor or a family member can go to a court and say, this person in my life or this person that I've dealt with through the criminal justice system or the mental health system should not have access to a gun for this and this reason. That the voters passed several years ago. We passed laws to clarify that can also be applied towards minors, people under 21 or under 18 who already theoretically shouldn't have access to a gun. They should also be able to extend this order so that the guns can be removed from that house entirely, even if they're not the owner because they're a minor. We also passed a law that says a domestic abuser who the court finds a domestic abuser to have access to a firearm that this is one of the most common times that people experience gun violence or any other kind of violence is in the immediate aftermath of a domestic violence event, gave courts the authority to require that, and police officers the authority to remove firearms from that household, make that a less volatile situation by removing access to the weapons that can make that an even more severe situation. So this was certainly the most productive year we've had as far as gun violence prevention. Oh, we also banned another thing. We banned ghost guns. This is where people can print guns on a 3D printer at home, right? It's not trackable, traceable. It's a real problem, and there's some thought that it might be addressed at the national level, but we don't have a great deal of confidence in them to solve that. So we passed a law that just clearly says you can't print a gun in Washington State. The previous year, we banned bump stocks, which is the tool that was used in Las Vegas. That mass shooting there, we can turn essentially a semi-automatic weapon into an automatic weapon. So I feel positive about the steps that we took forward on gun violence prevention this year. I have learned a lot tonight about sort of the specific experiences that you all encounter when you're dealing with property crime, dealing with people who are threats to your property for whatever reason, and I'm sort of welcome more suggestions for how we can improve state law to help reduce the incidence of these crimes. Obviously, this is a multifaceted problem. Councilmember McDermott talked about the financial challenges that King County faces. They are severe. We are aware of them. I will say that in the other 38 counties in the state, they're probably more severe everywhere. And so increasingly, legislators across the state are hearing about the challenges that counties face that are really more severe than the challenges that cities face, because cities have a lot more revenue options, have a lot more taxes they can collect, to be candid. Cities are able to levy a utility tax. Counties cannot. So when I pay my garbage bill or my city light bill, I'm paying a utility tax of about 10%. In unincorporated King County, that's not something you pay, and that is something that does impact the county's general fund in a pretty severe way, which does make it harder for them to provide the adequate public safety coverage that you need here in unincorporated North Highline. So that is somewhere that I will say the legislature has failed in empowering counties to have the resources or the tax options to ask their voters, do you want to support a higher level of public safety services in your jurisdiction? And we support that. We support fixing that, but we're 2 of 98, and we have more work to do in order to convince 50 of our 98 House colleagues and 25 of the 49 senators that it's a good idea to take a vote to allow more taxes that the state doesn't get any of. That is a tension that we experience when we are talking about taxes for local governments in Olympia. So that's somewhere we have a lot more work to do, but I heard loud and clear about the 1-year ban, the 1-year delay on a fireworks ban being it's an imminent threat to the safety of this community, and it's something that that I think that we can go back to Olympia equipped with those stories, and hopefully with with your participation in talking to our colleagues about why this is a threat to this community we represent. So those are some of my takeaways. I'll turn it over to my
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
powerful colleague.
And I'll just comment on, because there was a lot of discussion about homelessness and drug activity and that type of thing, that the legislature, since I'm the healthcare chair, that's what I do focus on, and we did do a lot of big changes in mental health this year, put a lot of money, state money, into mental health, actually housing also, which is another part of the issue, but into housing and mental health and drug treatment. And the thing I'll say that has changed so much in the years I've been down there is that in the past, when we would try and talk about drug treatment, people thought those are just people making bad choices. Because of the opioid crisis and how many people have been involved in, I don't think there's anybody that doesn't know somebody that's been somehow touched by opioids. And so that has changed the whole attitude, I would say, of the legislature about drug treatment, which I think is great, so that we really are trying to move forward and getting much more treatment. And because, the other thing I'll say is because we have better treatment options now because of Suboxone, one of the medications, which is medication-assisted treatment. The evidence shows that if you get people on Suboxone, that you can get them off of, they don't have to use heroin. They don't have the sick kind that he was talking about. So that's one of the ways that we're really trying to increase that treatment, and that we've got a plan across that we passed a big opioid bill this year about it, which includes all of the heroin. The one question I actually would have had for you is, meth is the big, we're seeing a big increase in meth, and there isn't good treatment options for meth, and so that's probably, I think, we used to have that was meth, and then it went down, and now we're back to meth again, and it's cheap. So that's the big worry I have about how we're going to try and deal with that. And you have a question for me?
I do. You talk about treatment plan, right? How many treatment facilities are reopening up after they all close down?
After they close down?
Yeah, a lot of treatment centers closed down in Washington State. My husband is a drug and alcohol counselor that works at Thunderbird. We're talking about treatment. Where are these people going to go to treatment at? Are there more facilities opening up?
Well, we are, but is that outpatient treatment?
No, inpatient. The only inpatient treatment center in this whole valley.
Oh, no, there's more treatment centers than that.
Not inpatient, no ma'am.
Well, the Chick Shadle has some
That's
inpatient.
private. I'm talking about state.
Oh,
Your state, right?
yeah, but no, we
That's
pay.
what I'm talking about, state.
No, yes, there's more than that. There's more than that. Because we have some that have opened up in Seattle, and then there's down in, as I was saying, in the Valley cities. So we have had difficulty.
That's outpatient.
No, they're doing an inpatient.
Okay.
But I will say that there is difficulty in siting places. Because Valley Cities, the reason it got so delayed, it was supposed to have been opened a year ago, was because they had difficulty in getting a place sited. And that's one of the other things I will say is everybody, and I tell this to all of you, people say they want everybody to get treatment, but they don't want a treatment in their neighborhood. And that doesn't work. So that's one of the things I'll just say is that we all have to share in making sure that people can get treatment and get help. I mean, it's the same for mental health. We have issues getting mental health places cited because people start complaining. And I'll tell you, there's one of the medication-assisted treatment plans, this is over in Sequim. One of the tribes is actually going to be opening up, and I talked to the representative from over there. They had 1,200 people come out and having a fit about it, yet they're also complaining about no treatment options. So, that's a catch-22. We cannot have it both ways. So that I'm just going to point out to everybody that we have to make sure that we take care of our neighbors too. So.
I work in functional medicine and natural medicine, and I think I met you in Olympia a long time ago. Anyway, but I have actually worked on a protocol for methamphetamine, but I'm not done with it. But I started to make a list of, well, what would that be? It's so we'll talk, and I found your bill. It's the House Bill 1713, it's Ricky's Law.
Yeah,
So
that was
a while back.
2 years ago, 3 years?
Yeah.
I don't know how many years
So
ago.
living on Myers Way, I had to learn to understand what was going on with the problem. So for a while it was heroin, you know, and then we stopped seeing the needles in the woods, and you know, so here we are, and it's like, what meaningful help can we offer them? So I'm working on it. I've got a rough start on it, so I'll get you a rough one.
All right, so it's your turn.